$45,000 loan. 6 cards zeroed. 11 days later, the first one was back. 8 months later, bank alert on his wife's phone. 6 credit cards, $28,000. All new balances. Cards that were supposed to be dead. The loan was still there too, 14 months earlier. Brendan was the kind of guy who kept receipts in a shoebox under the sink. 29, electrician, Raleigh, North Carolina. The kind of guy who'd check his balance twice before buying lunch and still buy the lunch. His first credit card arrived in May 2019, a Chase Freedom. $500 limit. The letter said pre-approved. He framed it as a joke. Then he used it. The cash back felt like winning. 2% on gas, 5% on groceries some months. He paid the statement in full for almost a year. Then the transmission went out in his dad's 2014 Ford, the one his dad had signed over to him when he got his electrician's license. $2,100 at the shop on Capitol Boulevard. He put it on the card. Told himself he'd pay it off in 3 months. He paid the minimum instead. Capital One sent the second card. Discover sent the third. Citi sent the fourth. He never applied. They just showed up. Each one felt like a gift. Each one became a cushion for the one before it. By 2022, he was running 4 cards. By 2023, 6. Wells Fargo Active Cash. A Synchrony Amazon card for points. He bought a $400 router he didn't need. A grill for the backyard Mara had wanted. Mara noticed the Amazon boxes first, then the statements. She stopped asking. October 14th, 2023, a Saturday. He sat at the kitchen table with every statement open and a calculator app glowing on his phone. Chase Freedom, $7,142. Capital One, $6,890. Discover, $8,204. Citi, $9,680. Wells Fargo, $11,430. Synchrony, Amazon, $4,546. $47,892. The APR column, $24.99, $27.74, $22.49, $29.99, $26.24, $30.24. He added the minimum payments. $1,180 a month. Almost every dollar went to interest. He was paying more each month than his truck payment, more than his share of rent. He was paying a second mortgage on a house he'd never own. Mara walked in, saw the spreadsheet, didn't say anything, just put a hand on his shoulder and left the room. At this point, what would you have done? Brendan didn't know it yet, but there's a name for what his brain was doing. Charles Duhigg wrote about it in 2012. The habit loop, cue, routine, reward. 3 parts. The card was the routine. The reward was the feeling of getting something now. The cue, and this is the part almost nobody sees, was stress. Every time Brendan felt a small, anxious pulse, his brain reached for the card. Not because he was weak, because he trained himself 6 cards deep across 4 years. He was about to try to kill a 4-year routine in a single afternoon. He searched debt payoff options on a Monday night in November. SoFi came up first, pre-qualify in 2 minutes. Soft credit pull, no impact. He clicked. The offer, $45,000. 60 months. 11.99% APR. Fixed payment, $1,001 a month. The math looked like a miracle. 1 payment instead of 6. Half the interest rate. On paper, $5,000 saved over the life of the loan. The website had a green button that said, Consolidate now. He didn't click it that night. He called his brother first. His brother said one sentence. Dude, that's smart. January 15th, 2024. 2:47 p.m. The SoFi deposit hit his checking. $45,000. He transferred to each credit card. Chase, paid. Capital One, paid. Discover, Citi, Wells Fargo, Synchrony. All 6 went to zero. He took Mara to dinner at an Italian place on Glenwood Avenue. He told her it was over. She cried a little. He felt, for the first time in 2 years, that he could breathe. 11 days later, he filled up at a Shell on Capitol Boulevard. He'd left his debit card at home. He reached for the Chase Freedom. Old habit, 0 balance. The card worked. $224 in premium gas and a protein bar. He told a friend later, the card felt like it had forgiven me, like it was a gift from my past self. He told himself he'd pay it that Friday. He paid the minimum instead. February. He booked a weekend in Asheville, put it on Discover, told himself the loan was the real debt. The cards were different now. They felt free, like credits sitting in an account he'd already earned. There's a name for this feeling too. Economists call it the zero balance illusion. When your card shows a zero, your brain doesn't treat it like available credit. It treats it like found money. By March, the cards totaled $4,200. By June, $14,800. Meanwhile, he paid SoFi $1,001 every single month on time. On paper, he was a responsible borrower. Off paper, he was running the same habit loop, same queue, same routine, same reward. At what point does zeroing a card stop meaning anything at all? Mara saw the Discover statement in September, 8 months after the consolidation. She didn't yell. She just said, "Brendan, show me all of them." $28,000 across the same 6 cards, plus the $45,000 loan he still owed, plus 9 months of interest, $73,000 in total debt, higher than he'd ever had before the consolidation, higher than when Mara first found out. The spreadsheet was on the kitchen table again. Same table, same calculator, different column at the bottom. Mara didn't leave the room this time. She sat across from him. She asked one question quietly. "Did you ever actually think it was over?" Brendan stared at the screen. He didn't have an answer. He'd felt like it was over for about 11 days, and he'd spent the rest of the year pretending that feeling was still true. Here's what the SoFi website didn't tell Brendan. When you pay off a credit card with a personal loan, the card doesn't close. It stays open. The limit stays active. By federal law, under the Truth in Lending Act, the lender has to disclose the loan terms, APR, fees, total cost of credit. But they are not required to tell you that zeroing a card is not the same as killing a card. In August 2023, TransUnion published a study on debt consolidation. People who use personal loans to consolidate credit card debt saw their balances drop by an average of 57%. Good news. Except TransUnion followed them for 18 more months. By the end, most of them had balances close to where they started, on top of the loan. Consolidation moved the money. It didn't move the habit. Brendan was one data point inside a pattern. A very crowded pattern. In the third quarter of 2025, Americans took out a record 7.2 million personal loans. 51% were for debt consolidation. Money Management International reported that 40% of its new credit counseling clients last year already had a personal loan open, up from 27% just 4 years earlier. To put that in perspective, nearly half the people walking into credit counseling today are already on their second loop of the same cycle. When the system makes money on both sides, the loan and the cards that go up again, who exactly is it designed for? Brendan did 3 things, in order. He called each card issuer, asked them to close the accounts. 5 of the 6 would only lower the limit to $300. They wouldn't close a line they were still earning on. He froze the 6th in a block of ice in the freezer. Mara's idea. He sold his dad's Ford, not because he couldn't afford it, because the transmission that had started the first card balance was a ghost he wanted gone. His dad understood. He drove him to the dealership himself. He moved his direct deposit to a second checking account with no card attached at a different bank. The only card on the old account was a debit card tied to a $300 daily limit. It took him 19 months. He paid off the SoFi loan in November 2025. The credit cards took 5 more months after that. Here's what this story teaches us. First, and this is the one nobody says out loud, debt consolidation without habit change is a loan, not a debt payoff. Duhigg's habit loop has 3 parts. Q. Routine, reward. Consolidation changes the account. It does not change the Q. It does not change the routine. It does not change the reward. This means before you sign a consolidation loan, you call every single card issuer and request the account be closed, not zeroed, closed. If they refuse, you ask for the limit to be reduced to 0 or whatever the minimum is. You take the cards out of your wallet. You remove them from your phone's Apple Pay and Google Pay. You freeze them in ice if you have to. The routine needs a locked door, not a fresh shelf. Second, and this is where the old routine actually dies, the 66-day rule. A researcher named Philippa Lally at University College London followed 96 people forming new habits. Her finding, 66 days on average. Some people got there in 18. The slowest took 254. This means for the first 70 days after your consolidation loan funds, you assume you have no access to credit of any kind. You pay with debit. You pay with cash. You pay with a money order if it comes to that. You track every transaction on paper, not an app. Writing slows the hand, and the hand is where the routine lives. After 70 days, you reintroduce one card in one location for one category. The Federal Reserve's repayment behavior research found that people who reintroduce credit slowly with a single defined rule had far better long-term outcomes than those who went back to normal. Brendan didn't know either of these things the day his loan funded. He thought debt payoff was a number on a screen. It isn't. It's a habit, and habits take weeks to kill. In his own words, later, "I thought I'd solved it. I'd just given myself more room to fail." Americans owe $1.27 trillion in credit card debt, the highest total in history. Personal loan originations are at a record high. The average person walking into credit counseling today has both, the card and the loan that was supposed to kill it. Brendan's story is not a story anymore. It's the default setting. Brendan wasn't weak. He wasn't bad with money. He was running a routine his brain had built over 4 years, 6 cards, and every small, stressful moment in between. When the loan wiped the balances, it did nothing to the routine. That's the part that nobody puts on the website. That's the part that almost took him under a second time. I've been covering these debt payoff stories for a while. This is the one where the trap is actually quiet. No predatory rate, no hidden fee, just a gap between what a personal loan does to the account and what it doesn't do to the habit. Do one thing before you go to sleep tonight. If you have a consolidation loan open or you're thinking about one, open your wallet and look at the cards that were supposed to be closed. If they're still there, that's your first 48-hour project. In the comments, tell me one thing. What was the first charge you made on a card you swore you'd never use again? I read every single one. Subscribe. Brendan still uses cards sometimes. One card, one category, gas only. The rest are closed. The freezer card melted last summer. He threw it away without thawing it first. Mara kept the receipts shoebox. She keeps the envelopes now too.